Yeah.
So, and then that brings us to the last question from Alexander. What influence might a Taoist practicing these things have on their surroundings in relation to these chapters?
In Taoism, there is this statement that I love. It said, when you cultivate and awaken your spirit, you bring positive influence to your 9 generations of ancestors before you and 9 generations after. That the influence, the energy emanating from that act, that event, is so powerful. And so it will actually, because keep in mind, China is an ancestor culture. Everything's about ancestors. So their belief is that if you cultivate yourself to that point, you're going to bring benefit to even ancestors, 9 generations before you. They will all go through, let's just say, a better transition from state to state because of you. And 9 generations after you will benefit from it. So that's the first part of that. And this is something very embedded within, I would say, Chinese culture. And it was also in Buddha too. He made similar statements about 9 generations benefiting from anybody achieving enlightenment. That there was this very profound connection and energy between all those. Now, in light of just kind of on a more kind of simplistic thing, is that, and I'm going to tell you this, and I've mentioned this before, but it's now that you brought this up, and this is where I have to be a little personal about myself, so excuse me, but in my life, I never really got along with my father. He was an alcoholic. I disagreed with him. I'm not saying I didn't love him. I'm just saying I really had problems with him, and I didn't really like him very much. But the truth of the matter is when I was younger, I was very much like him. So, it's, it's the same, that old story. But I went to the monastery, and when I came back, I stayed with my parents for a week, and I passed we both were walking through the kitchen, and as we walked, didn't say a word. We were just walking past each other, and then he stopped and he turned. And he went, Stuart, and I turned. I looked at him, and he goes, what? He goes, I don't know what you did in that monastery, but I really like it. Somehow I feel better. Now, we never discussed it much further than that, but I understood it to mean that my whole temperament changed because of the cultivating I did. And he felt it, and he benefited from it. Like he said, he felt calmer. And that's interesting because, we can all go through life with different people coming in and out, and we're affected by all of them. I always tell the story that if somebody walked into your house and they were very deranged and angry, etc., your whole spirit, your whole being goes into kind of a panic mode. On the other hand, somebody could walk into your house and be very loving, very affectionate. That also gives you another feeling. Sometimes we accept it, sometimes we don't. But it's interesting that and the reason I'm bringing this up is because in Taoism, there's this whole context of what they call virtue. And virtue is not, in the Chinese sense or the Taoist sense, necessarily about morality, because they find that very subjective. They are looking at virtue as a spiritual influence. A person of virtue has strong spiritual influence. And I've noticed that I've been a very lucky guy. I've met lots of great teachers in my life. And every one of them, this is interesting. It's like once I'm in their presence, I change. There's something about me that is better in their presence. I feel much calmer, more focused, etc. And it's them, because I didn't feel that way before I walked in. I felt that way when I was around them. They emanated some type of energy, which the Chinese call virtue. I really felt it like when I met Xuanhua for the first time. Man, it was just like being in the presence of somebody that I'm not like getting all worshipy and all that kind of. It was just being in the presence of somebody that I felt totally comfortable with and I wanted to be like. Same thing with T.T. Leong. Just things changed when I was around him. Roshi Katagiri, same thing. There's a woman in Taiwan, Yao Lin Guan. It was the same thing. Mr. Gao in Taiwan, same thing. They had a virtue energy about them because they cultivated themselves. Different. They were different in that regard. And, I think anybody, and it's not just spiritual people. I've been lucky and I've met a lot of famous people that worked really hard at their craft, their art, their whatever. And yeah, they have a different energy about them than the normal person because of the sincerity and dedication they entered into with their whatever it may be. So,
Definitely.
as TT put it, he says it's like a savings account. You put a little bit in at a time, but in the end, you have a big amount.
Yeah.
Never look at cultivating as something that's like a one-day endeavor, and you're gonna. No, it's every day, a little bit at a time, and
Yeah.
then you benefit. Cultivating is of all importance. When I asked TT, why should I bother cultivating? And he said to me, you have nothing better to do. That you come into this world, you should leave in better condition than when you arrived. That's your job. So cultivate, become a better human being. Within that, we gain virtue. Within that virtue, we gain harmony with things. And within that, we learn to help people because we recognize what they're going through.